we have a new law in Switzerland, which already partially entered into force this year and will be entering into force in August. My focus for the next 20 minutes, of course, won't be the full details of the law, but it will be focused on the registered, uncertificated securities. What a word! Basically, it's a ledger-based security, so DLT security. And the second topic will be Dlt Training Facilities, which will enable security tokens to be traded on a regulated exchange in Switzerland. And next slide. So the general approach in Switzerland, as you know, is the technical, everything is technology neutral. So many regulators follow the Swiss approach as well. They have the same approach. And in Switzerland, the approach is that as long as there is no need for new regulation, existing laws will apply. So there is no crypto-specific regulation or no crypto or blockchain-specific regulation until now. And this year, the regulator identified, or maybe just a couple of years ago, that there is actually a loophole in connection with securities token, and this loophole needs to be filled. So that's why we have a new DLT framework. Next slide, please. Just to give you a little bit of a background, what happened in Switzerland. So in 2018, FINMA, the regulator in Switzerland, the supervisor, published the ICO guidelines, because as you know, in 2017 there was a huge boom of ICO specialism, especially in Switzerland, and then the regulator had to step in and to somehow give some guidance. That was the ICO guidelines in 2018. In these guidelines, FINMA, the regulator, stated as the first regulator actually, that there were three types of tokens, which is the payment token, the asset token, and the utility token. And these tokens were defined, and it was really the first regulator who defined the token. Many other regulators after followed the same approach or very similar approach as well. In 2019, FINMA then published the stablecoin guideline as well, which is very important as well and still very relevant. In 2020, the Parliament adopted a new federal act. This is actually the full name, the Federal Act on the Adaptation of Federal Law to Developments in the Technology of Distributed Electronic Register. I will just call it DLT Bill or DLT Framework for the sake of clarity, because it's a very long name. In 2021, this year in February, the DLT framework was partially already entered into force. So with regards to the ledger-based securities. So you can already issue ledger-based securities. So for example, if you have a company and you want to issue shares or give shares to the shareholder, you can do it on the blockchain basically. And then later this year, it is expected that the full framework will enter into force, including that you can get a license for a DLT trading facility, for a DLT exchange, basically. So here, just to give you an overview, it's somehow cut off, but we have the payment token in Switzerland, we have an asset token, we have a utility token, and a hybrid token we also have, and that's basically a mix between, if you have a payment token and a utility token, which is often the case, then it's called hybrid token. We have the stable coin, but what I want to focus on today is really on the asset token, or more specifically on the security token. So the security token is kind of a subgroup of an asset token, and securities, as you know, are very highly regulated, especially in the US. Usually you have an issue if you issue a security token with the US. And in Switzerland, the regulator just saw that there is a need for regulation for securities token because there was no existing laws who actually covered the securities token properly. So just a bit of a background. So that's what I just explained. We have new registered uncertificated securities, which are ledger-based securities. And as I said, the entering into force of the full DLT framework will be expected in August 2021, this year. So just to give you, it's very, I've put a lot of information on this slide, but just to give you an overview. So we have basically, they're called registered uncertificated securities, which I found a bit a long name, and it's actually just ledger-based securities. We have in Switzerland uncertificated securities, which are not registered, meaning they're not registered on the blockchain, for example. But the problem with the with the uncertificated securities was that, first of all, which is not a problem, it's paperless. It's a paperless security, which is actually good, but you have to have a book entry. And if you have a book entry and you transfer the security to another person, you have to have a written assignment, which of course, as you know, for blockchain doesn't really make sense if you have everything digitally, and then you have to have this written assignment, which is really like a signature. So Switzerland identified this problem and decided to offer or make a new uncertificated security, which is called registered uncertificated security. And this security doesn't need to be transferred with a written assignment, which is very attractive. And this is what you can read on the lower. So no written assignment is needed for the transfer of the security, which means you can transfer it on the blockchain. The requirements for the registered uncertificated security or ledger-based securities are the power of disposal. So the holder of the security or the token has to have the power of disposal. Integrity is very important, so the integrity, it has to be protected against like unauthorized modification, of course, which is clear. Publicity is also very important, which the blockchain, if it's a public blockchain, usually allows to give publicity, and independent access as well. So the token holder has to have access to the blockchain and to the information, to the underlying information, basically. So this was the part about the ledger-based security. So if you want to, let's say, come to Switzerland and open a company, you can open the company and issue ledger-based shares, which is very new and yeah, very attractive as well if you are in the DLT space. But let's go to the next topic, which is the Dlt Training Facility. We have a new license coming up now, and it's called Dlt Training Facility. And the new license actually allows individuals and non-regulated entities to participate in trading. As you know, usually if you participate on an exchange, I'm not talking about a crypto exchange, like say a Swiss stock exchange, you have to be like licensed, or you are, or even a company, so no individuals are allowed to participate directly. Here, so it was basically reflected what is happening already with crypto exchanges. So you as an individual are allowed to participate on the Dlt Trading Facility directly. So unlicensed persons are allowed to participate. Then you have the custody of the DLT securities, settlement and clearing of transactions, that's all included. I just want to mention here, if you want to open a crypto exchange in Switzerland, let's say you want to trade only payment token and utility token, you don't need this license. It's really just if you want to trade or offer trading with securities token, then you need this license. For now, so let's say you want to open an exchange, payment, utility token, and fiat, you just need to become a member of a so-called self-regulatory organization, which is not very difficult to get, and it's also not very costly and very attractive. So the self-regulatory organization is not FINMA, it's not the regulator itself, but you can just become a member and comply with the AML rules, and that's basically it. So it's a very simple setup. What is important to mention is that you need a prospectus requirement, of course, if you offer securities on an exchange. That's very important, don't forget about this. And the only downside I see with the Dlt Training Facility is that you can't trade derivatives token. And privacy coins are also not allowed. They're exempted because they say, well, it's too risky, and that's why it's basically prohibited. But if you want to trade payment token, utility token, and securities token, this license is really the right license for you. So the minimum capital requirements, I don't want to go into the details, but just to give you an idea, is there is basically two types of DLT trading facilities. One is the large one and one is the small one. For the large one, you need 1 million Swiss francs, which is, I would say, 1.1 million US dollar as a capital, minimum capital requirements. And for a large one who also provides custody and settlement and clearing, it's 5 million Swiss francs. Then there is also for like startups, for smaller startups, for a smaller company, there is like the small DLT trading facility, and the requirements, the minimum capital requirements are like half of the large one. And in Switzerland, generally, the regulator is very open towards like new companies and startups. We also have a fintech license, which is not part of what I'm presenting here, but it's you can really interact with the regulator and discuss details and requirements as well. So it's very flexible. Here, just as an overview, the small DLT facility, trading facility, what's the definition of it? If you fulfill these requirements, you're regarded as a small DLT trading facility. If you exceed these thresholds, then you're regarded as a big one. So as I said, the new trading facility license will be available as of 1st of August 2021. It's also the Swiss National Day, 1st of August, which is kind of funny that they chose this date. In comparison with the EU, maybe it's also interesting to mention here, the EU is also working on a framework, on a regulation for crypto assets, but this framework will only enter into force in 2024. Switzerland will, the license will be already available this year, and so it's a huge advantage, at least for the next 3 years in Switzerland, or to have a company in Switzerland, or to engage at least with companies in Switzerland. The other thing that is not covered under the EU laws and regulation is the financial instruments part. So Switzerland has covered tokens, securities tokens, as financial instruments. In the EU, it's not the case. And I just wanted to highlight, this is the Swiss crypto guide that I wrote. So it's a website, you can go on the website, and if you're interested in knowing or learning more about the Swiss regulation, just go on the swisscryptoguide.com and check out what you need to know. You can also contact me, email me. So I cover many topics like banks, how to get a bank account, ICOs, tokens. You can all read it there. And yeah, I would like to thank you for listening. And Patrick Wermelinger will later be online and explain you a more broader scope of the Swiss regulatory landscape. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you.